Okay, in this video, I want to show you guys how we can avoid losing $1 million per year in churn. This is going to be applicable if you are a tech company that is at or very near the 10 million ARR mark and above. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Jordan Nelson. I run a company called Simply Scale that is a Salesforce consulting company, and we help, obviously, people in those two situations, a tech company at least at 10 million and above. And because of that, we solve problems like this on a daily basis. And so this is going to be super applicable to you. If you're not in that situation, probably should move on from here. I also would say in this one, since we're talking about churn, this one's probably going to be a little more applicable to SaaS companies specifically is what I used an example of. But anybody that has some type of renewal, this can be applied to you. So even my business as a consulting firm, we have renewals, right? So we work with a company for a year, and then next year our rates may go up, change or something, and we have to, figure that out with our clients. So as we do that, there's a chance for churn to happen if they don't renew with us, okay? So that's all churn is, and that's what we're going to be talking about. So you can apply it if you're a service business too, but specifically, we're going to be using some examples from SaaS stuff today with subscriptions. So just to call out before we jump in, what I want to review is the current situation we see when we jump in with a new client. So the pain that you're likely experiencing. Over here, I've been doing these flow charts that I like. I feel like this helps give you guys a visual of what I'm talking about so you can see what's happening. This is the current process that we see when we take on a new client or we're working with an existing client at this 10 million ARR mark or above that. You typically have some kind of client, okay? So client X pays you 200K ARR. Their renewal date is on the 31st of March. March 1st comes around, it's time to kind of start talking to them and negotiate those new terms or make sure they're going to sign the new agreement if it's the same. And so basically a month out, if not more, you want to start talking to them, make sure you're on a good page so that they are good to go on the renewal and nothing's going to slip. Well, sometimes that does not happen. So you have whoever your CSM is over this account forgets about it. There's nothing that notifies them that the renewal is coming up, or maybe they did send it out, but you haven't got it actually signed quite yet, and you need to follow up with the customer. Something in this little section happens to where you don't have a process in place that just says 100% of the time we are going to do X, Y, and Z, and when we do X, Y, and Z, we will reduce our churn as much as possible by following those steps. Usually in this situation when we step in it's a lot of gut feeling. It's a lot of, oh, I know I'm supposed to follow up and I know that I was supposed to send the email and I was supposed to watch this, but you don't actually have a process to just automate that and make that easier so that it never fails. And so when that happens, inevitably, right, you have somebody that forgets about one of these things and then someone churns that probably wasn't going to churn with you anyways. They would have renewed, they would have re-upped with you, but they didn't just because somebody didn't follow up or you didn't get the paperwork signed in time. Okay, so that renewal date passes, the client gets lost, and the churn occurs. Okay, so we talked about how those renewals will slip because we don't have a process in place. We also talked about how this can happen when nobody's watching, aka, I knew I was supposed to follow up and I saw the date, but I forgot about it, et cetera, et cetera. Something was there where you had to manually do this and there's no automated process or reminder to make sure it gets done. And then the big thing I want to call out here are these last two, which is in this situation, if you happen to fall into this, well, this stinks because now you're in this situation where these guys were paying you and you could have negotiated with them while they were still paying you. And now you're in a situation where they're no longer paying you and you have to negotiate. So when you go back to them, two things happen. They're kind of more in the driver's seat when it comes to negotiation because you need them to renew so they can maybe negotiate a better rate, or you have to discount a little further than you would like to. And two, you're not getting paid from them like you were before. If you were negotiating while they were still paying you, okay, not a big deal. But now if you have to negotiate while they're not paying you, that stinks because now it may take a month, 2 months, 3 months, however long your deal cycle is to get them to agree to these new terms, all while they could have just been paying you had you done this a few months prior, right? So that's also why we want to do this ahead of time so that we're not losing 3 months of revenue from this person or however long it takes for you guys to go through an average deal cycle. Okay, inevitably, somebody's going to churn. as we all know in business, okay? It's pretty much impossible to get this thing to 0%. Somebody's not going to like you. Somebody doesn't like the person that they worked with. They found a better product. They went out of business. I mean, the list goes on. Some of those are controllable. Some of them aren't. And the point is, not everybody's going to be a client of yours forever once they sign. So it is inevitable someone will churn with you. But what I am calling out here is, just because that is the case, and I say this because we've worked with people that have said this to me before, which is, because people are inevitably going to churn, why do we need to kind of think about this, and why do we need to come up with an automation and spend time and money on fixing this? Which is kind of a weird response when you're thinking of, well, if we can control it and we possibly could lower your percentage from 10% to 5% or 15% to 5%, wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you want it to keep 10% more of your clients if we could do that? And the answer should be yes. So what we're trying to talk about here is, yes, we understand people are going to leave, but we should also put every process into place that is possible to make sure that we can avoid this from happening if that is a possibility. So that's what this whole process is going to be about. If you aren't familiar with the renewal process, it's pretty straightforward. You probably got a gist of it from that flow that I showed you. But basically two things, right? Is you identify who's ready for your subscription or this new term that's coming up for them, if it's been a year or so. And then basically two things happens. Are they ready to sign? Yes. Okay, then we create a renewal subscription, we activate it. If the answer is no, this is typically where you go into negotiation mode and you figure out how you can keep them with you, and if you guys are still a good fit for one another. Again, controlling what you can control here. If they are still a good fit and it's a matter of terms, you negotiate. If they're no longer a good fit, you let them go. But the point is, that's what you go through when you do this renewal process, okay? So how do we come up with this $1 million that I'm claiming to have found for you? Well, a typical churn rate in the SaaS tech world of anybody that's at least at 10 million ARR, you see it anywhere from like 5 to 15%, okay? And again, this is also relative to what you do, where you're going to fall on that, what you sell, how much it's costing, all that kind of stuff. This is a average across the board, since I can't speak to every single use case directly, 5 to 15%. So we're going to be very fair in this situation and take 10%, okay? Right in the middle. If you make 10 million ARR and you take 10% of that, that is $1 million. So pretty straightforward math. If you've watched in these other videos, sometimes I go down this like crazy rabbit hole to come up with that number. This one's really easy. Just 10% of 10 million is $1 million. So you have $1 million sitting on the table that's potential to churn. We want to lower that or save all of that if possible. So again, like I said above, we're stopping as much churn as we possibly can. So what is the fix for this? How do we actually solve this problem for you? I'm going to go through this again. We'll go back to our talking points so that you can see what I'm trying to refer to. All right, so here's your updated process once you hire me and my team to come in and solve something like this for you, okay? You would see something like this that is all done in automation inside of Salesforce and is handled for you on the back end. Nobody has to do anything after we set it up. So it's a one-time setup and it works forever unless you want to change it to do something different, right? So now you have client X paying you $200K. Their renewal comes up on the 31st. Okay, the 1st of March happens. Let's say for your business, you need 1 month to be able to negotiate everything. Okay, so on the 1st of March, we're going to trigger our automation to happen, which is called a flow inside of Salesforce, okay? But it's an automation. So this automation triggers the renewal date. It sees that it's 1 month prior to actually having to happen. So it's going to fire this automation off. When that automation gets fired off, we're going to go to the CSM that's over that account, send them an email and say, hey, client X is due in 30 days. You have $200,000 of ARR that is at risk if we do not renew this. And so they are notified without a doubt every single time that this happens. Take this further. This is a really simple example, but to take this further, we could make this happen 2 months prior, 3 months prior. We could make it happen multiple times. We could make it ping 3 months prior, 2 months prior, 1 month prior, and then every day after that if you really wanted to until the renewal date happens. So this is very customizable to what you want it to do and how often you want these to go out. Same thing with down here, right? We could email that person a bunch of times if you want it to. In our use case, we're just going to say we send them one email that for sure goes out to them, letting them know 30 days ahead of time. After that happens, the CSM then calls client X and figures out if they are ready to renew. Now, at this point, you have two choices that allows them some time to do that. If they say, yep, we're ready to renew, cool, you renew them, you save 200K. And then as you keep doing this for your clients, in this situation where we're saying they're only 200K, you do do this for several other clients and you get up to your 1 million. So this is going to happen with however many clients you serve. If you're making 10 million a year, you're likely 50 to 200 accounts, probably more or less, right? Depending on what you sell and what your price point is. But that's something typical that we see, 50 to 200. So depending on how many accounts you have, this number could be higher or lower. And you kind of just repeat this process until you've saved the amount of churn that could happen that year. Now, if they say no, this is also where it's improved. You negotiate with that client to improve the terms. And because we sent this out a month in advance, you have the whole month to figure out what the terms are and get them to sign before they churn with you and you lose that revenue. Okay, so this is much more improved than, say, we go back to this one where hopefully Susan or Jeremy remembers to call this person up and get on the right page and make sure that it's all signed up. And while they're managing, like I said, if there's 50 to 200 accounts, they're probably on several. And it's just a big guess that you're hoping that they remember and stay in touch with every single one of their accounts the way that they should. Okay. So back to the talking points, we have this automation, or a flow is what it's called, to send you an alert. It triggers 1 month in our use case. We could do it earlier than that or later than that. Prior to that renewal date, we notify the CSM to reach out. They negotiate as needed and then keep that client active. So again, we are just literally looking at, this is something that if you don't hire me to do, or you don't hire a consultant in general to do, you should do this, right? This is something that is manual, and it's a waste of time to try to have your people remember this and rely on it when you could just automate it and make sure that it happens every single time. So what we're trying to do is look at your business and see repeatable manual tasks like this one that are critical, that if you get it wrong, it's a big mess up. And we want to automate those as much as possible. In this case, you can automate the whole thing. So the win that you see here, you have $1 million potentially that you're not losing every year. If we look at that 10%, you have improved communication with your clients. This is where it gets fun, because there's other benefits that happen that we can't really put a direct ROI on, but do happen, which is if you're reaching out to them and you're really hands-on, they're going to feel like you care about them and you care what's best for them. And you're always being proactive about making sure that the service is up to par so that they do stay with you. Well, this is increasing your lifetime value of your customer, right? And what does that do? It typically leads into this trickle-down effect, which is you get free marketing. They tell their friends, they tell other people, they tweet about it, they post it on social and say how awesome it is working with your company because you take care of them so well. And so this also bleeds into, you get free marketing, you get better word of mouth, you get a better brand reputation, and the list goes on and on and on. As you provide a better service or a better product for somebody else, you're going to get some of these indirect benefits as well that it's kind of hard to put a number on, but that also improves, right? Because of us fixing this. The best part about this whole thing is we can do this in 30 days or less, guaranteed. And if we can't, I will do it all for free for you. You can hold me to that if you've watched this video, because I know we can. This is something we do all the time. We would come into your business, we would talk about the things that happen in your deal cycle, and then we would automate it like you saw in that use case to make sure that all the notifications, all the things that need to be updated are being done in Salesforce for you automatically, so that nobody forgets about somebody that can potentially churn with you. And then I put up this picture over here. If you don't know what this is Mykonos. Why did I put up Mykonos? Because this is where you're going to be at when you're saving this kind of money every single year and churning from your company. This is where your President's Club is going to be going next year after you guys save all that money and make more money for taking care of your clients. So if this is something that is resonating with you, or you do not have this in place in Salesforce, like I said, you need to do this regardless if you hire my team and I. But if you haven't and you want help doing it, click the link below in the description and my team can come in. We can do this in 30 days or less, where it's free, and get you guys to make sure that you don't churn that 10% every single year in your business.